What is up, everybody, and welcome into today's video. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Harry and I am a drummer. For those of you that have seen my videos before, welcome back. Thank you for being here. Now, today, I thought I would make a long overdue video talking about my audition process for getting a cruise ship gig. Now, a little backstory for those of you that don't know. Last year, I spent 6 months working for Carnival and 5.5 months on the Carnival Breeze, playing drums for the rock band. And essentially, I had 2 different auditions for ships. So my first audition was with Lime, which is one of the most prevalent agencies for cruise ships. And that first audition involved me getting a link with 7 or 8, I think it was, MP3s of different styles. So everything from like rock to samba to you know, swing, brushes, bossa nova, a bunch of different styles. And also 3 songs, which were Jump by Van Halen, Love on Top by Beyonce, and the other one was Got to Get You Into My Life, the Earth, Wind and Fire version. And essentially I had to film myself playing along to those 30-second snippets of the styles and playing through the full 3 songs and cut them together to submit later. Then a couple of days later, I had a Zoom audition, and an hour before the audition, I got sent, I think it was 4 or 5 songs, again, of different styles. So it was jazz, funk. One of them was kind of like, you know, I think it was like a show band intro, like an epic sort of upbeat rock number kind of thing. And I had sheet music attached to that. So I had an hour to learn those songs. So I had to print out the sheet music, and I had an hour to learn those you know, the 4 or 5 songs. And I just remember my sight reading at that point was so bad that I completely bombed, and in that hour of preparation, I didn't get much done at all. I was like scrambling to find my footing and like catching the stabs and nailing the grooves, and I was just all over the place, especially with the jazz stuff, the up-tempo stuff. It did not go well. Essentially ended up sitting there and completely bombing and couldn't catch barely any of the stabs that were on there. My sight reading, I can read drum notation, but sight reading on the spot is obviously a whole different animal, especially interpreting it in different styles is a whole different animal to just sitting down and working out, you know, a bar or 2, practicing something, you know, bit by bit and breaking it down. So then after the audition, I submitted the links that I needed to, essentially got an email back a week later saying, hey, we can see that you're technically good enough to play this stuff and to play different styles. We can see you're versatile in different styles, but unfortunately the sight reading portion is very important, and you could, for a show band scenario, you could be getting the sheet music on the same day to then perform that evening. So you'd have a couple hours maybe to prepare, like, you know, probably, I don't know, 5 to 10 new songs every day. I don't know exactly what the number is, but I'm sure, you know, you're constantly on your feet when it comes to sight reading. So essentially they said, you haven't got the gig, but because we can see you're good enough and you worked hard on the audition, if you want to re-audition in 10 months, we'd be happy to try you out again. So basically I took on that challenge, and I started buying and using different resources. So first, free resources that you can find is on YouTube. If you literally just type in YouTube drum sight reading practice, there's loads of good sight reading resources that are free that you can just use on YouTube. And the good thing about YouTube is you can slow down the video, right? And then there's MuseScore. You can look at like big band charts and stuff like that. So that's like free resources. Then Another thing I did, I purchased the Chad Wackerman, I think it's called Kicking the Band is the course on Drum Channel. It's $100, but if you are willing to make that investment, I can very highly recommend that. It's very good for beginners to like start out with the absolute basics of like jazz. It's basically on jazz reading. If you don't know Chad Wackerman, he's a drum legend. He's played for Frank Zappa amongst others. But he basically shows from like the basics, and also you can use it in a practical sense. Once you've learned the new stuff, then there's a chart with a song and an MP3 where you can actually like utilize those basics and try to actually use them in a practical sense. So it's not just a boring exercise. So that's a very good course. Then I got the Anthology Sight Reading book by Steve Houghton, the Studio and Big Band Drummer book, also by Steve Houghton. Great resource. It's an amazing book. Obviously the Syncopation book, the Ted Reed Syncopation, is a classic book, amazing book to, there's so many different ways to utilize that book to practice sight reading. The Louis Belson, I think it's called Modern Reading Text in 4/4, I believe, is a great book. If you really hate yourself, you can get the reading in odd time signatures, but I don't know if I'd recommend it. It's not really necessary, I don't think, at least for beginners to practice sight reading. And then I practiced a little bit on my own, and then once my touring commitments ended at that time, which was September of 2022, I went about getting an actual teacher. And now I want to give a huge shout out to Todd Bishop. Todd is an amazing drum teacher. cruiseshipdrummer.com. Go check out his website, cruiseshipdrummer.com. It's an amazing website with so many like great resources, amazing insight, little anecdotes by him. There's so much, like there would be, if you just use his site to practice stuff, you would have an endless site of resources for free as well, because he uploads stuff and you don't have to pay for it. So Todd is honestly, he's a saint when it comes to like drum education. He's really generous with sharing his knowledge with the world. But if you do want to take private lessons with him, I actually highly recommend doing that, or get a drum teacher in your hometown, whatever. But Todd does do Skype sessions. I would highly recommend getting a teacher, because that's where I made the fastest progress for sure, was through Todd showing me, and Todd's like one of the best drum teachers that I've come across in all my years of being a drummer. And honestly, Todd improved my sight reading so much in no time. We had a lesson once a week, every week, and it honestly like was a game changer for me. Now, I spoke about my touring commitments before that ended in September of 2022. During these touring commitments, before I came off tour, I put together a spreadsheet of every single agency and cruise line I could find, and essentially emailed every single one of those and ticked off that I had contacted them and what response I got, if any. And I think it was actually around September time that Warshaw Entertainment, which is the agency I ultimately ended up signing with, hit me up and said, hey, there's nothing available right now, but we will get back to you when there is. And they didn't actually get back to me until January of 23, by which time I was actually at a point where I was kind of questioning whether it was all going to come together. And then suddenly I got an email saying, hey, there's actually auditions for a major cruise line if you're still interested. It turned out that the cruise agency that was hosting auditions was Carnival. It was an online audition. I got the audition link. The next morning I booked a drum room, especially because I live in an apartment. I don't have a drum set in the apartment. So I booked a room. In that audition link, there were 7 or 8 MP3s with sheet music attached, so very much like the Lime audition kind of thing, of different styles. Those songs were Tush by ZZ Top, Tell Me Something Good by Chaka Khan, or Rufus and Chaka Khan, 25 or 6 to 4 by Chicago. There was a bossa nova track, a jazz swing track that sort of every 16 bars switched between a jazz and a Latin feel. And there was a section in there where I had to solo for 32 bars, or rather, I think I had to trade 8s for 32 bars, or however long it was. And then there was also a drumless funk track that I had to interpret in whichever way I saw fit. So I went, and the instructions were to like record myself playing along to these songs. And again, this was very much like the Lime audition, where it was like 40 seconds of each song. And on the sheet music, it said play from section, you know, A to the coda or whatever, right? And then I went home with a good feeling of that I'd done a good job. I was quite proud of myself. There was an online interview portion, which essentially had questions blended in on the screen, you know, so just like questions like, oh, you know, why do you want this gig? Tell us a bit about yourself, or try to convince us why you think you stand out from other musicians, or, you know, that kind of thing. And you had some time to come up with an answer, and then you'd hit record, and then you had like 2 or 3 minutes to answer, and then you'd click next, and it would have like, you know, I don't remember how many questions. But then in that online interview portion, there was then a sight reading section where I would have had to sight read 2 or 3 songs. But of course I was back home and I didn't have a drum set, as I mentioned, so I wasn't able to do that sight reading section. I didn't realize, you know, that somewhere in the email it had said that there was actually going to be a sight reading portion, but because there was sheet music attached to the MP3s from before, I thought that was the sight reading portion. So I thought, okay, cool, yeah, you know, that's the sight reading portion done. So then I had to basically press record and sit there with, you know, with no drum set in front of me saying, hey, listen, here's a situation, right? I booked the room especially, and, you know, if you give me another chance to do it another day, I'd, you know, more than happily do it. I'm really sorry that I, you know, misunderstood that there was going to be more sight reading. But anyway, I basically spent a week after submitting that despairing whether whether that was going to make or break the audition. And then funnily enough, a week later, I got an email from Warshaw Entertainment saying that I got the gig. And then I had to do my medical. I had to do a full medical. I had to get a C1D, which is crew in transit visa, and a B1, a business visa, criminal background check. So essentially just stuff that allowed me to go to the US and work for Carnival and work on a ship. And yeah, so those were my audition processes, and I hope this was informative to you guys. Let me know if there's anything else you guys would like to know, if you'd like to see another video of me explaining anything, any questions on cruise ship life or anything related to it. That concludes today's video, and I certainly hope that I was able to help some of you guys with it. Please let me know whether you are about to go on a cruise ship or you're looking for a cruise ship gig, and if this video helped you. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate every single one of you, and I will see you guys in the next video. 1, 2, 1, 2.